Well, good afternoon, folks. This is Jerry Boykin, and thanks for joining us here on Facebook Live. I want to talk to you this afternoon about the situation in North Korea. I think that most people are aware that there has been some very strong rhetoric from both sides that has come out in the last probably 48 hours that would make it appear that we're on the brink of war here. Not only that our President Donald Trump talked about fire and fury in terms of what the North Koreans and the world would see as a response to an attack by North Korea on any U.S. Or allied installations or anywhere in our country. But we also heard the Secretary of Defense issuing a very stern warning to Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, telling him that he had better think twice about doing anything that would provoke the United States to respond with what would ultimately be mass destruction. He made it clear that Kim would lose his regime, and a lot of North Koreans would die as a result of it. Well, this is pretty serious. I am one who has believed that ultimately Kim Jong-un would back down and look for a negotiated diplomatic way out without losing face. And I think he still might. But I also think that this is, we're at a point now where this is a very serious situation, and I am certainly concerned about it. Now, I think there are several things that the United States needs to do. And before I go into them, I jotted them down here, and I'm going to look at them here in a second. But I want to tell you that I think that the rhetoric that you heard out of both the Secretary of Defense Mattis and our President was really directed at China as much as it was at North Korea. China's the key here. I think China is the key to resolving this short of a war, short of a military exchange. Now, on the one hand, I think that there has to be a military option, but remember that we have had military options for North Korea ever since there has been a split between North and South Korea with U.S. forces in the South. We've always had a plan. In fact, we've had a couple of plans. One if the North Koreans come south, and the other one if the South Koreans, for whatever reason, need to go north. We've had plans for those, and those have been updated routinely. But now I think we need to have specific plans that would allow us to preempt, preferably, a nuclear strike on the U.S. or our allies, and then failing the preemption, that would give us the capabilities to respond in an appropriate way and eliminate the threat very quickly. And I think that's being worked on. I don't think there's any question that our military commanders are working very hard on that right now under the guidance of Secretary Mattis. They're working on being able to respond or to preempt the North Korean threat there. Now, what do we need to do right now? In my view, and I'm just sitting in my office today and I'm thinking through this, and this is what I think we need to do. First of all, we need to deploy an array of military assets. Now, why? Because we need to show Kim that we're not bluffing. This is serious, and that America is serious, and that our president is serious about not allowing North Korea to attack America or its allies. What do we deploy? We need to get a carrier, maybe even 2 carriers off the coast of Korea. We had one there a couple of months ago, which I think sent a strong diplomatic message. But we need to get a carrier there, a carrier that is fully manned, fully equipped, with all the aviation and even the missiles and that type of thing. A carrier always has a task force with it. So I think that we need to get that off the coast there and put them in a position to where it's very clear to Kim that they are ready to strike when ordered to do so. The other thing we need to do is we need to get our bombers in position. We had another overflight within the last 22 hours of B-1s flying over the peninsula, and I think they need to be put in either Japan or maybe even Guam itself. where they can run long-range strikes if necessary. Again, to send a signal to Kim. We need to get our submarines in line. We need to get a submarine or two off the coast there. These submarines, keep in mind, are nuclear armed. They are the ones that are part of the triad of nuclear capabilities. They could be placed off the coast there and be fully armed and ready to launch tactical nuclear weapons if necessary. And then we need to deploy more air defense systems. We already deployed the Theater High Altitude Air Defense Systems, or THAADs, in South Korea. We now need to put more of those in Japan. We need to put probably more of them in South Korea, and prepare to be able to preempt or interdict a missile that would be launched out of North Korea. Now, keep in mind that some of our naval assets also have capabilities to take out a missile, and we need to have those ships there for that reason as well. But we need that air defense there, and then finally we need to deploy some special technology, and I can't go into a lot of what that is, but there is technology that exists today that is under U.S. control that would allow us to knock out much of Kim's infrastructure and that type of thing that would be very important if we had to go with the military option. Now, let me say, I don't want the military option. I hope that we can do something short of the military option. But when a guy like Kim Jong-un threatens you, you better take it seriously. And then when he ratchets up the tension by testing more intercontinental ballistic missiles, some of which he claims he could reach the continental United States with, you have to take it seriously. So while I don't want to see the military option, I think that we have to be prepared for that. And by putting those things in place, we send a message to Kim Jong-un as well as to the Chinese that we are serious and you better not provoke us. Now, I think we also need to target several things. I mean, our planners need to be targeting, obviously, the nuclear facilities, missile launch sites, underground nuclear storage facilities, runways, and that type of thing where they could actually launch a nuclear weapon. But we also need to target the artillery up on the DMZ. We need to figure out a way to destroy as much of that artillery up there as possible, because that's the biggest threat to South Korea, is from the artillery pieces that are stationed up on the demilitarized zone. We need to be working hard to be able to neutralize as much of that artillery as possible if we do have to go with the military option. And then, quite frankly, we need to target Kim himself. That's a tough proposition. You're not going to put ground troops in there to target him. It's something that would have to be done probably remotely, or you buy somebody inside Kim's circle that would be willing to take him out and eliminate the problem altogether. And then I think that we need, once we've positioned our military and we're ready and we show them we're serious, we need to then issue a diplomatic démarche to the Chinese. And that démarche is basically, you can call it a request, but it's almost a demand. And we ask the Chinese, first of all, to rein Kim in. Kim Jong-un is the leader of a rogue state that, in fact, at one time was a surrogate for China. And now they're out of control, and I don't think the Chinese know what to do with them. And the Chinese need to get very involved here and help rein in Kim Jong-un. They need to stick to the sanctions they signed, the sanctions they've cheated on in the past. They need to stick with those sanctions and really hurt Kim economically, which will certainly have an impact on him and his regime. And then they need to cut off all trade with him. Again, part of the sanctions. Cut off all trade with him. They're responsible for about 90% of his trade in the first place, so they need to cut that off. And then stop all support. Don't provide any more support to Kim. They are the ones, the Chinese, that helped him develop this nuclear program, and they need to stop that now. And they need to stop providing him with any support at all. We've got to make him suffer. And then last but not least, they need to target Kim. They are the ones that are in the best position to take Kim out. And I think ultimately the greatest solution to this would be to eliminate Kim Jong-un and thereby eliminate the problem. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll follow up here in the next couple of days, maybe with an update. Thanks a lot.